You ever have one of those moments where you're just looking forward to a quiet afternoon, maybe by the pool, just you and the sound of birds, the rustle of trees, maybe a glass of iced tea sweating gently on the arm of a patio chair? Yeah, that was the plan. That was the entire plan. But what I got instead was a full-blown HOA circus, starring me, the retired engineer who just wanted some peace, and featuring a woman in a navy cardigan who thought she ruled the entire cul-de-sac. It started with a scream. Not the kind that makes you run, but the kind that makes you sigh and go, "Now what?" I just pulled into my driveway still in my consulting clothes, still thinking about the leftover ribs waiting in the fridge when I heard it. The kind of scream that sounds like a possum got into someone's kitchen. But no, it was coming from my backyard. Now let me set the scene. I'm Raymond Ellis. I retired after 40 years in civil engineering. I moved to Briarwood Lane, Illinois, for quiet. I built my life on calculations and reinforced steel. I don't do chaos. And I definitely don't do trespassers in floral swim trunks. I opened the side gate, the one that's always locked unless I'm home, and found a soaking wet man-boy hunched by my pool shivering, sputtering, and looking like he'd barely survived an Olympic qualifying round. His mother, Lorraine Marshall, stood beside him like a furious rooster, face red, hands on hips, barking accusations into the sky. "Raymond, look what your death trap has done to my boy. He could have drowned." I took a breath. I take a lot of breaths these days. "Lorraine," I said calmly, "your son is 20 years old and fully capable of making decisions. One of them, apparently, was to break into my yard and throw himself into my pool." "Don't you dare talk to me like that," she snapped. "That pool is a menace." The kid, her son Mason, jobless, aimless, built like a waterlogged beanbag, just muttered something about how hot it was and how he slipped. Slipped? The 6-foot privacy fence had a fresh scuff mark, right where he'd climbed over. I raised an eyebrow. "So you're admitting he trespassed?" I asked. Lorraine's face darkened. He was drawn in. "That pool of yours is an attractive nuisance. You people move in with your fancy things and think the rules don't apply to you." "Oh, you people." There it was. That quiet little prejudice that always simmered beneath Lorraine's home-baked cookies and clipboard crusades. I'd lived through worse. I wasn't rattled, but I was tired. Tired of being treated like an outsider in my own damn neighborhood. Before I could say more, the paramedics showed up, called by Lorraine, of course. Mason was checked, poked, prodded. No injuries. Just wet, dumb, and embarrassed. Then the police arrived. Officer Jada Morales, young, sharp, professional. I explained I wasn't home. That my pool is up to code. Locked. Secured. She took notes, nodded. Asked Mason a few questions. He mumbled. Lorraine shrieked. Then, just before she left, she turned to me and hissed, "This isn't over, Raymond. We're going to sue you for endangering my child." Child. The man's old enough to rent a car. That night, I didn't sleep. Not out of fear, out of indignation. Because I knew what was coming. And I knew I needed to prepare. A week later, I received the paperwork. Lorraine Marshall versus Raymond Ellis. Negligence. Attractive nuisance. Emotional trauma. Medical bills. I read through it slowly, methodically, like I used to read structural specs. My lawyer Alan Carter, an old friend from my Chicago days, took one look at the footage from my security cameras and smiled like a man about to eat steak. "Raymond," he said, "this is not a defense. This is a counterattack." Because, oh yes, I had footage. Clear as daylight. Mason clumsily climbing the fence. Slipping, flailing, dragging himself out. And then this part still cracks me up, grabbing my skimmer net and trying to fish out a leaf like he worked there. There was no trauma, no danger, just a fool caught in the act. But the real gift? The anonymous envelope. No return address. Inside, screenshots of Mason's texts, bragging about sneaking into my pool, calling me names, slurs, saying his mom was going to cash in by suing me, that they'd use the money for a new gaming console. Alan just leaned back in his chair and said, Let them dig the hole. We'll bring the backhoe. Court day came fast. Lorraine wore a navy suit like she was mourning the Constitution. Mason looked like he hadn't slept since his last Xbox update. Their lawyer, Mr. Finch, gave this dramatic opening about community safety and traumatized youth. He painted me like some suburban Bond villain engineering hazards for innocent white boys. Then came our turn. Alan showed the footage. The whole room watched as Mason vaulted the fence, belly flopped into my pool, slipped, and then recovered. Then lounged in my chair like he owned the place. Then the texts. They were projected on a screen. Slurs. Laughing emojis. Plans to fake trauma. You could have heard a pin drop. Judge Thompson stoic, sharp, black robe. White hair looked over her glasses and said, "Ms. Marshall, were you aware of your son's behavior?" Lorraine opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The case was dismissed. With prejudice, meaning they couldn't try again. The judge called their actions fraudulent and malicious. Referred them to the DA for possible charges. When we walked out, Alan said, "Justice with a side of karma." But the story didn't end there. Lorraine's reign in the HOA dissolved overnight. Her petitions? Ignored. Her sidewalk sermons? Met with silence. Neighbors she once controlled started whispering, then outright laughing. Mason? Community service. Sensitivity training. Rumor had it he had to scrub graffiti and weed gardens at a community center run by the same folks he'd mocked in his texts. As for May joined the HOA board. Just for one term. Just long enough to fix what Lorraine had twisted. We updated the bylaws, clarified the enforcement rules, and created a good neighbor code based on mutual respect. I never wanted a fight. I wanted quiet. A pool. A few good books. Some weekends with my grandkids. But when someone comes for you with lies and venom, sometimes the only thing you can do is respond with calm truth in a few well-placed security cameras. These days, I sit by that same pool. The hedges trimmed just so. The gate locked. The water still. Lorraine still lives across the street. But her windows stay shuttered. And when she walks to get the mail, she doesn't look my way. Mason's car is gone. Maybe he moved. Maybe he's hiding. Either way, peace has returned. But let me ask you, have you ever had a neighbor like that? Someone who thinks they own the whole block, who hides bigotry behind bylaws. Drop your stories below. I've got my iced tea and a quiet afternoon ahead. Let's trade war stories. And remember, always lock your gate. And maybe, just maybe, point a camera at it, too. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story on Store of Good Stories. If this story touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to hit like and share the video to spread this positive message to more people. And if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the meaningful stories we share every week. Your support is the biggest motivation for Store of Good Stories to keep bringing heartfelt and valuable stories to you. See you in the next video.